into my heart, I can say with perfect.
So as Abraham settles into this land, he does what was common in all religions in those days, and he builds an altar. First in verse 7, God appears to him and says, "To your offspring I will give this land." And so he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. And then in the next verse, the same thing. He went on towards the hills of Bethel and pitched his tent there. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called in the name of the Lord. And so wherever he went, he would build an altar. It was a way of almost claiming that area for God and saying, this is God's land. God's presence is here. We build this as a symbol that this place belongs to God. And I wonder, in that sense, if there's an altar in our homes, an altar where you say, this is a house of God. It could be a cross that you've put up or a Bible verse or something like that. And in a sense, it acts as an altar claiming that place for God. But an altar was more than that in the Old Testament. You see, an altar was a place of sacrifice. Later on, people would bring their sacrifices to God, and because his presence was symbolized at the altar, they would lay their sacrifice on the altar and shed that blood to try and appease the gods. But of course, we know, friends, that Jesus died on the cross. In a sense, the cross is an altar. He gave himself up as a sacrifice, shed his blood so that we could be forgiven. There at the altar of the cross, oh, praise God for the sacrifice of Jesus. And so in this sense, perhaps there's no need for altars in our churches anymore. I know I've heard people say this. There's no need for an altar table at the front of our church because the sacrifice has been made. So why even have one? But I think there's something significant about an altar. You see, God calls us still to self-sacrifice, to sacrifice our lives for him. Paul says in Romans 12 that we need to offer ourselves as living sacrifices. In other words, not a sacrifice to be killed, but a sacrifice to live unto God. And so maybe you need to go to an altar today, symbolically, and say, Lord, I sacrifice my life here for you. Take my life. Let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee, as the hymn goes. And so maybe we can learn this lesson from Abram. Wherever he went, he set up an altar to claim the place as God's, and to commemorate God's work in his life. And more than that, let's lay our lives on the altar and say, Lord, take them. We give them to you. God will honor the commitment that we have to him. He did it for Abram, and he'll do it for us as well. God bless you all, friends, and as always, I want to thank you for donating towards my ministry. Those of you who contribute really do keep me going, and I'm so very grateful. Have a blessed weekend.
A reflection of